Myself, I'm Paul Miller, the chair for the Warren County Democratic Committee, and I really thank you for coming out today and being part of this demonstration for common sense gun law measures. And we had already planned to have speakers from Moms Demand Action present at our monthly meeting to talk about some of these common sense gun measures. And so after the violence in Uvalde and Buffalo, it seemed like we should create a space locally for us to come together in solidarity around reforms that we think can save lives. So I appreciate you all being here in this spirit. Thank you so much for that. We have a voter registration table behind you, and we have some calls to action. Trevor and Christine are managing that table, so come on over. There's an open letter you can send to our congressman asking for him to represent the overwhelming majority of Americans of all political persuasions that would like to see background checks, the age of assault rifle purchases raised to 21, as well as red flag laws which save lives. To get started, our first phase of this event today is going to be a reading of the names of the lost lives in Buffalo, in Uvalde, Texas, and in the Tulsa hospital shooting. There have been so many mass shootings just in the last month that we couldn't wrap our heads around trying to list every name. But please know that every victim of gun violence is a sacred life that we care deeply about as an organization. So I'm going to hand this over now to Nancy Smith, who will read the names, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Want me to hold it for you?
Yeah, do you mind?
Yeah, and you just actually talk to it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, oh, I see what you're saying. I probably will cry because this is I'm a retired teacher, so is my husband. And I just see the kids in my classroom. I taught first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and their smiling faces. I know these children. And it just breaks my heart. It's got to stop. Enough. So when I read these names, put a child's face, the little face with their name. McKenna Lee Elrod, 10. Layla Salazar, 11. Miranda Mathis, 11. Nevaeh Bravo, 10. Jose Manuel Flores Jr., 10. Xavier Lopez, 10. Tess Marie Mata, 10. Rogelio Torres, 10. Ellie Garcia, 9. Liana Torres, 10. Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez, 10. Jackie Cesares, 9. Uzziah Garcia, 10. Jace Carmelo Huevanos, 10. Maddie Liliana Rodriguez, 10. Kayla Nicole Silguero, 10. The two teachers, Irma Garcia, 48. Eva Morales, 44. Amarie Joe Garza, 10. Lexi Anya Rubio, 10. Alethea Ramirez, 10. These children, needless deaths. And now these were victims shortly after the 10 victims of the top grocery store. I heard for their families. I just can't imagine. Oh, it's okay. Are you ready to? Okay. Yes.
People just buying groceries, something we all do. Robert A. Dury, 32 years old. Magus D. Morrison, 52. Andre McKinley, 53. Aaron Salter, 55. Geraldine Talley, 64. Celestine Cheney, 65. Hayward Patterson, 67. Catherine Massey, 72. Pearl Young, 77. Ruth Whitfield, 86.
And then the 4 victims at St. Francis Hospital in Tulsa, where the shooter just was mad because he felt that his pain wasn't relieved by the doctor. Mad. So a few hours earlier goes to buy a gun. Murders Dr. Preston Phillips, who was a missionary doing good for others. Another doctor in the room just happened to be in the wrong place. Dr. Stephanie Huson, just 48 years old. Dr. Phillips was 59. A patient, William Love, 73. A receptionist, Amanda Glenn, 40 years old. We're going to be talking about just actions we can take. This has got to be different. It has to stop. And we're a part of making that happen.
Thank you both. Do you have some comments you would like to make, Rebecca? Thank you.
I was trying to think of something that I could say while we're here together, and nothing I could come up with surpassed what Amanda Gorman, the youngest inauguration poet, about some of the things that she has written. And this is just a brief few of her thoughts and words. And the insight this woman has, this young lady has, is amazing. Part of her writing. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? For there is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it. If only we are brave enough to be it. For it's our grief that gives us our gratitude. Shows us how to find hope if we ever lose it. So ensure that this ache won't endure in vain. Do not ignore the pain. Give it purpose. Use it. And I think that's what we're doing by showing up here today. And all over the country, these rallies are happening. So thank everybody for coming, and enough is enough is enough.
Absolutely. Rebecca and Nancy, thank you so much for those comments. And that is definitely to the point. Can you hear me better now? Can you hear me better now? Talking to the right part of it, right? Yeah, that's the point, right? We have to start activating as people. You know, I don't care what party you vote for, but call your congressman and say you want gun reforms. Doesn't matter what party you vote for. If you are like the majority of Americans who believe it's time for some sensible action to make our children and our community safer, This is the time when you can do it. It's not a betrayal of your party, your background, the culture of your family. It's really embracing and loving your community to do this. And so I ask anyone who has any doubt about that to think of it that way. And now I'd like to turn this device over to Pastor Ingrid to lead a moment of silence and have some remarks of her own. Hold on. That got their attention.
So I tuck into the side.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay. So please join me for a minute of silence or a moment of silence for all these victims of gun violence, because their names and their lives will not be forgotten. Had a little divine intervention there as the car went past the song lyrics where I won't forget you. Amen. Amen. So one of the oldest, the very oldest stories in the Bible is a story of Abraham and Isaac climbing the slopes of Mount Moriah. And Abraham has heard God command him to sacrifice his son, this longed-for son, whose very existence was a miracle. He hears God say to him, "Take your son, whom you love, and offer him as a burnt offering on the mountain that I will show you." And as they walk, Abraham carrying the fire and the knife, and Isaac carrying the wood, Isaac asks his father, "Where is the animal for the sacrifice?" Our hearts hurt for Abraham, as we can imagine him searching for words, for a way to answer. And Abraham finally responds, "God will provide the sacrifice." It turns out that Abraham's words were correct, ultimately, because at the last minute, an angel stops Abraham from sacrificing his son. Instead, God provides a ram, which had gotten its horns tangled in a thorn bush right next to the place where the sacrifice was to be made. But what this story doesn't tell us is how the experience affected Abraham and Isaac and Sarah. After that day, for example, there is no mention of any conversation happening between Abraham and Sarah, his wife. Maybe she never spoke to him again, and who could blame her? For centuries, people of faith have debated the meaning and intention of the story. Some have lifted up Abraham in this instance as a model of faith for agreeing to sacrifice what was most precious to him. But others ask the question whether maybe in fact Abraham failed a test of faith, that the story was included in the Bible to teach people that child sacrifice was wrong, not at all God's will, and that what Abraham should have said was no to the voice that commanded him to kill his child. Now, child sacrifice was pretty common in the ancient cultures around the Hebrew people, but this practice ultimately was prohibited in the Jewish faith. Abraham could have responded, "No, the God that I know would never ask such a thing." If he had consulted with Sarah before gathering up his things and Isaac and starting up the mountain, maybe she could have set him straight. If he had spoken with his son honestly instead of hiding his intentions, maybe he would have realized the insanity of the request that he thought he heard. The story is often held up as an example of Abraham's faith, but I've always wondered if we've been reading it wrong. Maybe this ancient story is a lesson that the God of love and life and justice wants us to value the lives of our children and other innocent people more than anything else. And I think that's the lesson that all of Scripture teaches. And yet, over and over again, as a nation, we sacrifice our children. We do so when we fail to enact policies that help lift young families out of poverty. We do so every time we refuse to invest in education for young people. We sacrifice our young people when we decide as a nation that mental health care is too expensive. And the bodies of our children are quite literally being sacrificed to the idea that untrained civilian 18-year-olds should freely carry AR-15s and other weapons of war, even as we have judged that these same 18-year-olds are too young to drink alcohol or even rent a car. There is nothing more precious than the life of a child. Nothing. There is nothing more important for us as a society than ensuring that our kids are safe and that they can grow to their full potential. When in order to survive in their schools, our kids have to cover themselves, when they have to cover themselves in the blood of a murdered classmate and pretend to be dead, as 11-year-old Mia Cirillo had to do, then we are way, way off course. I am grateful to all of you gathered here today to help to bring that to the public's attention. Whether our elected representatives will hear us, well, that remains to be seen. But we cannot stop speaking out about the importance of the lives of children and the dangers of irresponsible gun laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ingrid. That was a beautiful way to illustrate the responsibility that we have to children. And that really came from the heart. Thank you so much. I would now like to turn this meeting over to our guests from Moms Demand Action, because they can talk about what we can do at the legislative level, but also how we can have conversations within our own community and connect on this important issue and get past some of the emotional gridlock that we have with our families and neighbors, but also some of the highly improbable gridlock that we have in the halls of Congress. So this is Katie and Mike Fox with Moms Demand Action. And I'll let you guys hold it, just keep it from, if you have comments, you can hold this. You have comments, it would be easy for you to hold this. Yeah,
Yep.
you go
Okay, good.
ahead.
Thank you so much for having us here, and thank you all for showing up. Thank you for not looking away. History is made by those who show up. I'm Mike Fox, and I'm the state legislative lead for the Virginia chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I live with my wife Katie in Albemarle County outside of Charlottesville. We're not asking for the moon. We're not asking for anything crazy or radical. We believe in and support common sense, proven solutions to prevent gun crime and violence in this country. Our foes try to distract us, they try to divide us, they try to confuse us, oftentimes they lie about us. But the truth is that common sense solutions have broad support. A survey just taken this week shows that simple solutions like expanding background checks to private sales and red flag laws to temporarily disarm someone in a crisis, or raising the purchase limit to 21. 18, you're too young to drink, but maybe buy an assault weapon. I don't think so. And these policies not only have support among Americans as a whole, but also among Republicans and among gun owners and among rural Americans. Also, the gun owners are not coming to take your guns. Trust me on that one. No, they're not. And why? Why do we all feel this way? Because we all share common values. That our kids should be safe in school. That all of us should be safe in our own communities. That we believe that with rights come responsibilities. So the road ahead will be tough, but this is a movement, not a moment. The people are on our side, and we're on their side. So keep going.
So my name is Katie Fox, and I am the state extreme risk lead, meaning that I focus on red flag laws. But as a gun owner, I have a healthy respect for the Second Amendment and the responsibilities of gun ownership. As a gun violence survivor and a classmate of Sam Riggs, a Warren County High School sophomore who took his own life with a gun in April of 2006, I'm here to tell you that red flag laws, like Virginia's substantial risk order, do not infringe on our rights, especially due process or the Second Amendment. Substantial risk orders are specifically designed to provide a way to intervene when someone is showing strong signs of being at risk, wanting to hurt themselves or others, and when someone isn't voluntarily willing to temporarily give up their guns. The basic steps for getting a substantial risk order begin with reaching out to your law enforcement or Commonwealth's attorneys and presenting a case of changed behaviors and threatening circumstances. Once you've presented the case to them, they go to the court and a judge can issue a temporary order that would remove a person's firearms for up to 14 days. At that point, they go to hearing at the court where they can challenge that order or not, and a court decides whether or not the firearm should be removed from the home. If the order is finalized, those firearms are only removed for up to 6 months. In that time, that person has space to go find help, be it mental health, be it financial help, whatever they need to get through their crisis. That is the point of a substantial risk order, is to mitigate crisis so that someone does not take their lives. This is just one important common sense gun safety solution to end gun violence. Virginians worked hard to pass laws like this, and our lawmakers cannot continue to look away or forget the lives that have been stolen. The Senate must take action. Our message is simple. Don't look away from our country's gun violence crisis. It's time for you to do your jobs. Now is the time to be bold. Now is the time to do something, because inaction is no longer an option.
Thank you, Katie and Mike, for sharing that. You know, it's funny because on my way here today, when I hugged my husband goodbye, I thought, well, he's seen what I'm wearing. It sounds histrionic, but it's really not. I worried about our safety today a little bit. You know, our committee even ran into trouble getting our liability insurance because insurers are a little scared to cover, we got it, but they're a little scared to cover a gun rally in this country. But I again just want to say that, you know, I called Congressman Klein's office just the other day. Other members have too. You can call no matter what your political affiliation is and ask for reforms. It really does take a volume of people. It takes a lot of us raising our voices to make change. This is a beautiful moment right now that we're sharing, and I'm so glad we are. But it has to be backed up with action, and it has to happen every day. You know, find that moment in the morning to make the call. Find that moment during lunch to make the call. It really does matter. If you can change hearts and minds, you know, in the Senate, you know, it takes a lot of us to put a dent in the armor that the NRA gives our elected officials. But I will say this, the National Rifle Association is in a crisis mode. They're not as strong as they were when Sandy Hook happened. And there is an opportunity here for the people, the grassroots level, to really put the battle to the test and really get out there, use your voice, and make change. This is the moment I think we've got to seize. And so by being here today, you're doing your part in that. But let's keep this momentum going. Let's keep it going by putting pressure on our electeds. And let's keep this momentum going by showing up to vote, getting other people to get involved and vote, and making everyone really understand what's at stake here. I can only imagine that this morning when I had that thought go through my head that my family knew what I was wearing when I left. I had the intelligence, the adult emotional intelligence to process that, try to do some risk assessment and carry on with my day. I don't know what it's like for a kid. This wasn't the childhood that I had. So I can't imagine what it's like for a kid to have these same thoughts go through their head and not even really have some of the tools we have to process it. Children are living in terror in this country, and I'm at the point where I can't help but feel that by not standing up to this problem, we're sort of allowing domestic terrorism to flourish in this country. There's no doubt about it. So there's many lives at stake. And then one last thing I will say to the point that Katie made. You know, I'm sure if you ask a lot of people who have done crime and harmed someone, if there could have been a way for them to be intervened with before they did it, to give them the grace and the space to make a different choice, they would love to make that change. You know, especially if they've had time to consider it and to find themselves. 18 years old is awfully young. Your brain's not even finished forming. Your sense of judgment is not in place yet. And to be, as much as I of course sympathize with the victims, I also do have a thought in my mind for the people that perpetrate this very young, in a crisis mode, and with a set of policies that do nothing to protect them from their own worst impulses and the darkest day of their life becoming a dark day for, you know, dozens and hundreds of families, depending on the situation. I want to say that at this point, we're here till 2, but there is the voter registration table. If you're not registered, look into it. There's the letter that you can sign on to. You can also use it as a jumping off point to send your own letter to your representatives. And also, you just want to use some time to greet each other, get to know each other, and share an action plan with each other. That would be, I think, a great way to use time. And also, Moms Demand Action has some calls to action too that they can share with you. Do you want to talk to that? Yeah.
So it's actually very simple. Our Moms Demand calls to action are all text words to 64433. And I have a list of them with me, but the easiest one you can do is to text BOLD to 64433. And that will get you in touch with your senators to urge them to vote for common sense gun safety legislation going on right now.
Thank you so much, Katie. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And let's spend a little time together. I really appreciate you coming out today. Thank you.